Hello, I'm Sally Graves Machlis, and I'm talking today about the artwork that I do collaboratively with Delphine Kiem. Our collaborative pieces begin with conceptual discussions of the stories we want to tell. We discuss them back and forth and sketch out the content and the format of our upcoming pieces. The next step often is me painting a variety of types and sizes of papers. I was introduced to ink painting on my sabbatical in Taiwan, and I use traditional black inks, but I also now use colorful inks in much the same way. I typically start with a water wash and then add the ink, allowing it to flow over the paper and adding other textures and layers of ink. Let me show you a little bit about my process. I work on the floor because our pieces are usually very large. This piece is going to be a book, a folding book, so it's a bit smaller. And the first thing I do is I wet the paper with water. It is good quality Arches watercolor paper, rag paper, so I don't have to hurry as I coat the paper with the water. I have plenty of time that the water just begins to soak into the paper, but it will stay there for quite a while. And then I begin adding the ink and letting the ink flow and create interesting shapes. Sometimes I add the shapes that I want. Having had the opportunity to observe and do quite a bit of calligraphy in Taiwan, I really enjoy that. And I go back and add more water to make the ink flow. Obviously, if I'm using colored inks, there's even more options. Sometimes I'll throw the ink on. It's a building process and actually lots of fun. These papers become the foundation of many of our works. With Delphine's skill as a graphic designer, she adds text, laser patterns, cuts them out on the laser cutter, and we combine them with other materials, different shapes, and come up with the right materials to tell our stories.
Hi, I'm Delphine Kiem, and I collaborate with Sally Machlis. Together we use our sensibilities to create artwork. Sally is a painter and has been a fine artist her whole career, and I have worked as a graphic designer and am now participating in a collaboration where I bring the sensibility to our work. When Sally and I are planning for a new work, we talk about things we're wanting to say. We really work to get on the same page with what we're trying to do with the work. And then we use digital files to figure out where we want the work to go. And a lot of times I'll take something that she's started as a background in her ink painting, and then we'll start working digitally. When we have some agreement on what it is that we're trying to do, then we will trust each other to develop the work separately in parallel. And so I'll take the work and start visualizing things in the computer, and then maybe make some files that are digitally created and cut on the laser cutter. So that's what some of these things are here. This work, the Threshold of Discourse, took a few years to resolve. Sally had painted the two background panels, and they're one is dark and moody, and this one is very vibrant in color. And we used those panels as a starting point and then created some files to develop the imagery that is evocative of a tree of life. I've switched over to the computer so I can talk to you more about our digital process and how we use the visual aspects of the digital to get on the same page conceptually, as well as do the actual work. So here's a top portion of both of the panels that Sally developed with her ink painting. And you can see that she's also created the words that were the start of this concept. And we had been talking about the idea of the tree of life being a unifying visual element that could play a role. So from this raw state, I took the work into Photoshop and the panels start with the background that you saw in the last image. And then we talked about a tree, and I thought about the negative space between the two panels maybe being a trunk, and then worked on getting the imagery closer to our visual language. I want to talk also, we had a moment where I was looking at green leaves for the tree and called Sally, and we both decided no, it just sprawls the conversation and it doesn't really work with what's already here. So we went further into kind of thinking about developing color based on the work that we already had. And so you can see how the mock-up sort of takes shape here. And while this is where we were at that point, going further, I cut off the bottom parts of the books because they were really, really long and I didn't think we were going to need all of it. And so developed these vector files to cut out the shapes from both colors at the bottom of the panels. The birds and the branches and the flowers, they're cut from these digital files that are created for the laser cutter. So I take the same ink paintings and cut these forms, and then we have the forms to really kind of understand how to put these two sides of the paintings together.